Spring is here, it's warming up, it's beautiful days, and you and your father decide to go outside and enjoy this beautiful spring day and want to play a round of golf. In the middle of the round of golf, your father turns to you, clutches his chest in mid-sentence, and collapses to the ground. This is what we call sudden cardiac arrest. This is where an electrical impulse caused by something that we're not exactly sure of causes the heart either to beat erratically or stop beating. It can happen to anybody, anytime, at any age. It does not discriminate. You may have heard in the news over the past couple of years where high school students, college students, and professional athletes have been collapsing either during games or in practice due to sudden cardiac arrest because of a malfunction in the electrical system of the heart. Now, cardiology that deals with sudden cardiac arrest has been near and dear to me. As a matter of fact, when I was 7 years old, my father died of sudden cardiac arrest. Now, back then, technology was not available to resuscitate him by providing that electrical shock that's needed. And as a result of this, I've always had a need to be a nurse. So when I became a nurse, I've specialized in cardiology for the past 20 years. And even before I became a nurse, I had some experience with sudden cardiac arrest. When I was working in an office, I witnessed a coworker collapse at her desk due to sudden cardiac arrest. People have been dying of sudden cardiac arrest for thousands of years. It wasn't until 1947 where scientists discovered that applying an electrical shock to the heart either restarts the heart or changes the rhythm from a fatal rhythm to a life-saving rhythm. So today I'm going to talk about what a heart is, how it functions, how defibrillators work to provide that shock, and how an automated external defibrillator, commonly referred to as an AED, works. Now, the heart is a large muscle that's essentially a pumping machine. It consists of 4 chambers, all beating in a choreographed rhythm. The 2 top parts of the heart are the atriums, and the 2 bottom parts are the ventricles. They work amazingly efficiently and for a very long time. According to the American Heart Association, the heart beats approximately 100,000 times a day, or for a total of 2.5 billion times in a lifetime. No one has been able to replicate that in an artificial heart to work as efficiently as a human heart. It's quite amazing. So how does the tissue of the heart work? How does it pump? Well, it pumps and beats because of electrical impulses. The electrical impulse starts at the very top of the heart, and it starts in what we call the S8 node, but in layman's term, it's called the internal pacemaker. That decides how the electrical impulse gets to the various parts of the heart to keep them beating in rhythm. And when the heart, it comes down the highway, and then it spreads out to the various tissues of the heart through the Purkinje fibers. So when the heart is in sudden cardiac arrest because of a malfunction of the electrical system, the ventricles are not pumping correctly. They're just pumping however they want to do. So when that happens, blood is not getting out of the heart, it's not getting to the tissue, and then you have the possibility of sudden death. Now, according to the American Heart Association, you have approximately 4 to 6 minutes before you start experiencing cell death in the brain because of lack of oxygen. Now, when those bottom parts of the heart, the ventricles, are beating erratically, that's what it looks like electrically. You can see where it's just wavy and nothing's working right. This is a normal rhythm. Everything's perfect. But this is what happens when someone goes into sudden cardiac arrest. you have to be able to get back to that. And the only way to do that is apply an electrical shock directly to the heart. Now, it sounds counterproductive to give an electrical shock to the heart since the heart works because of electrical impulses. But what happens is when that shock is delivered to the heart, it resets that internal pacemaker that I showed you on that previous slide. It briefly stops the heart and allows that internal pacemaker to reset itself, just like resetting a button on your DVR or some other device. When it resets, it knows it needs to go back to that normal life-saving rhythm. Okay, now that you understand how the heart works and what makes it pump, we're going to discuss how an automated external defibrillator or an AED works. This is a sample picture of what a little AED external defibrillator looks like. It's a very life-saving device. It's quite amazing. Now, according to the National Institutes of Health, which is a department within the Department of Health and Human Services, they have published a 10-step guide on how to use the AED. First, I must let you know that it's very user-friendly. Any untrained personnel can use this device. So if you ever have come across or seen someone that is under sudden cardiac arrest and they have an AED out and ready to use, the first step is to make sure that that person is not laying in or near any water. Water is a great conductor of electricity. So you don't want, if you have to give a shock, you don't want anybody getting shocked along with the victim because you may create another victim with sudden cardiac arrest. So you've got to make sure there's no water around. Next step is to turn on the AED. There are no written manuals tucked inside the AED. It is all voice commands or instructions. Very easy to understand. And when you turn it on, the first instruction is it's going to tell you to place these pads, which are here, on the person's exposed chest. Each pad shows exactly where to put the pad on the person's chest. You can't go wrong. And then the second step, or the next step, is to make sure those wires and those pads are plugged into the AED. And an afterthought is make sure that you remove any necklaces from the person because that could create burns if you had to shock someone. Now the next one is the press the analyze button. And what the automatic or the AED is going to do is analyze this person's rhythm. And they're going to see if it's in that ventricle fibrillation rhythm that's fatal. If it is, it's going to tell you that that person needs to be shocked. So when that occurs, you make sure that, and you've heard this on TV and it sounds corny, you have to yell out, everybody clear, stand clear, because if anybody's touching that victim, they're going to get shocked and then you're going to have to shock that person on top of it. So make sure everybody is not touching, including yourself, that person. So yell stand clear and then press the shock button. The shock has now been delivered. The next step is the AED is going to automatically reanalyze the victim's rhythm. If it only took one shot and brought that rhythm back to normal, then it's done. And then all you're going to do is wait for the paramedics or the fire department to get there, stabilize the person, and transport them to the hospital. If that rhythm did not change back to normal, then there's a possibility that the AED is going to tell you to shock that person again, and you follow those same steps that we just talked about. Due to the advancements in technology, there is a much greater chance for the average public to survive a sudden cardiac arrest. My suggestion is if you want to learn more about AEDs or sudden cardiac arrest, I would suggest going to a couple of websites, the American Red Cross or the American Heart Association, or actually visit or get on the website for your local fire department. They have wonderful information. Thank you.